Right then, this is your Manchester United versus Chelsea preview. Now, we've got three things to talk about, and that is Erik Ten Hag losing the fan base, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes need to be dropped, and the key player, Cole Palmer. But before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, and comment down below your predictions for the upcoming game against Chelsea. Now, we faced Chelsea earlier this season, in early December, I believe it was, and we won 2-1, thanks to Scott McTominay. Now, Cole Palmer as well, he also scored in that game, so that's a great top pick to get him started into this video. And Cole Palmer, you know, he has done very well this season. I can't knock him because he has been very, very good. You know, there was a lot of question marks about the signing and the size of the fee when Cole Palmer went to Manchester City, but really, he has really stood out, and Chelsea have got their money's worth out of Cole Palmer. But I'm still not blown away by him. I just think he's a very decent player in a very poor performing Chelsea side. And that's it at the end of the day. He is the main man. All eyes are on him. When you think of Chelsea, you think of Cole Palmer this season. And that's unfortunate for someone like Cole Palmer, in my opinion, because they've got so many experienced players, the likes of Raheem Sterling, for example. They've also got players like Caicedo, Lavia. I know they've had a massive injury crisis as well, and you know, it's going to happen. A lot of teams have had injuries this season. Manchester United have been heavily injury crisis this season. But with Chelsea, they have had a lot of inconsistency, and they are a very unpredictable team. I'm not going to sit here saying that they're a terrible team. The Chelsea, or was it Bowley's, Billion Bottle Boys, whatever it's called. But at the end of the day, Cole Palmer is a very good player. But I just aren't blown away by him. He doesn't remind me of someone like Phil Foden or Kobbie Mainoo or Jude Bellingham, you know, a young English midfielder that everyone is hooked on. I think the only reason why everyone's hooked on Cole Palmer at the moment is because he is overperforming in a poor Chelsea side. But, you know, he scored, I think it's 6 penalties this season in the Premier League. He's got 13 goals, 7 or 8 assists, whatever it is. He has done really well. But there was another player who did that a few years ago, and his name was Bruno Fernandes, and everyone called him Bruno Penandes, you know, because apparently all he did was score penalties, which was a myth. But where's the same criticism for Cole Palmer? Is it because he's English? Is it because Chelsea are just underperforming and everyone secretly knows that Cole Palmer isn't that good and he's just overperforming, like I've just said? So, you know, a few people might be getting called out for this, but I personally feel like Cole Palmer is very, very overhyped. But that's just my opinion. Talking about Bruno Fernandes as well, going on to him and Marcus Rashford. Now, there's an analysis video that's been going around, and it's this guy called Ricky. He's also been on this channel, but he's also seen quite frequently on the United stand. And he did a video analysing Bruno Fernandes, and this was during the Brentford game, so our most recent game. So it wasn't from a few games ago where Bruno could have picked up form or anything. It's our most recent game with Bruno Fernandes and Manchester United. And it was a segment of Manchester United pressing the Brentford defence, and the ball went back to Brentford's goalkeeper, Fleck. And what happened was Bruno Fernandes is on the edge of the box and charges and rushes pressing the goalkeeper, which is United want to trigger from the press. They want to trigger from the front press, and that's clearly an instruction that Erik Ten Hag has asked Bruno Fernandes or other midfielders or other players to do, to carry the press from the front. But anyway, this is where we went wrong, because this is why Bruno Fernandes shouldn't be charging forward. Leave that for someone like Rasmus Højlund, because what happens is that Flecken, the Brentford goalkeeper, hits it out wide to, I believe it was the fullback of Brentford, and he carries it along the sideline, and there is so much space in that midfield when Bruno Fernandes is just not there. Kobbie Mainoo is literally like a deer in headlights. He doesn't know who to mark, he doesn't know where to go, and Bruno Fernandes has left Kobbie Mainoo completely exposed because of how far he's gone forward. This is what really frustrates me about Bruno Fernandes, and it was an amazing analysis by Ricky, by the way. And it was the way Bruno Fernandes just completely took us out of the game, and Brentford went on to score, but it was just offside, so the goal didn't count. Obviously, that's what offside is. But at the end of the day, I've seen that way too many times now this season, and Ricky's kind of made me see the light with that video, because now you realise why Manchester United concede so much and why we have so much open space in that midfield, because players like Bruno Fernandes press way too much and leave a massive space, and that's where the that's why we're getting penalised, you could say, because players are targeting that free space. I don't know what Bruno Fernandes does when it comes to running around like a headless chicken, but at times he really makes us a worse team. And this is why I was saying, should Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford be dropped? Now, Marcus Rashford does the complete opposite to Bruno Fernandes. Even though Bruno is running around like a headless chicken, like I've just said, and he is putting 110% effort in, Rashford seems to be doing the complete opposite. Now, you might be thinking, well, why should they both get dropped if they're completely acting for different reasons? Rashford's issue is that I'm not going to sit here calling him lazy, but he isn't sprinting anymore. He doesn't seem to be as direct as he was last season. That poacher's instincts has completely disappeared from him. And he seems to be scoring a few goals and he is doing okay. But at the end of the day, Rashford's also making us worse. You know, you look at someone like Garnacho, who's running his heart out for the full 90 minutes, or however long he's on the pitch for, and you see him tracking back, you see him pressing, you don't see any work, you don't see Garnacho's work rate slipping by any means. And it's hard because Garnacho will do that all game, mainly on the right-hand side, but then Rashford will hardly do it on the left. And it's very frustrating, and this is where we're losing games, because either Rashford isn't pressing, or he's losing every 50-50, or he's just not fast enough, or he can't beat a man. It's very frustrating for Marcus Rashford because we know he has the ability to do it, just like Bruno Fernandes. But the issue is that maybe some time on the bench for both of them and see what Manchester United can do without them could be a massive positive. And maybe Erik Ten Hag could get a lot of fans off his back, because this is what also another segment I wanted to talk about, which is Erik Ten Hag losing the fans? Because in the last 2 months, there has been more Erik Ten Hag outers than I've ever seen. And it's very frustrating because I back Erik Ten Hag, and I will do, because that's the loyalty I have towards Erik Ten Hag. Not because I'm delusional, not because of previous managers and I feel guilty for being them out, or being that manager out too soon, or whatever people want to accuse me of. But it's because I saw what Erik Ten Hag did in his first season, and that hooked me. You know, we won a trophy for the first time in 5 years. We got to the FA Cup final. We did really well in Europe, and we got back into the Champions League. Yes, it was an off season for many teams, and you could say Manchester United got very lucky. But at the same time as well, so many teams have improved this season. So many teams have been impacted by injury crises, and Manchester United, I believe, are in the top 3 teams in the Premier League that have been impacted by the most injuries. So how can you expect Erik Ten Hag to compete with the teams of this season who have stepped up their game if he's getting a terrible transfer window by getting Rasmus Højlund, Mason Mount and Andre Onana? We've already spoken about this, because if I was asking you this, who were Manchester United's most 3 important players last season, you'd either say Rashford, Casemiro or Lisandro Martinez. Rashford, we've just said, he's been off all season. Martinez has practically been out with injury all season, and Casemiro has had his injuries as well, but has also been completely off form. So our 3 most important players from last season have hardly had any spotlight this season by being an impactful player and being one of our best players. You'd have to say our best players this season is probably Dalot, Højlund and McTominay. If you was to say that to me at the start of this season, that Scott McTominay, Diogo Dalot and the new striker Rasmus Højlund will be our best players, I'd be completely worried, because I'd be like, what's happened to Bruno Fernandes? What's happened to Rashford? What happened to Varane, Martinez, Casemiro? You'd expect them players, the senior players, to be carrying the team. Dalot's really stepped up this season, and for me, I really value him as a future captain of Manchester United with the way he's performed. And even going back to that Cristiano Ronaldo interview with the likes of Piers Morgan, Ronaldo gave so much praise to someone like Diogo Dalot, saying that he has the correct mentality to be an elite footballer. Plus, Diogo Dalot was also personally scouted by Jose Mourinho when he was at Manchester United, and that's how we got Diogo Dalot in the first place. So with someone like Diogo Dalot, it took him a while to be established in the starters 11, but he's now arguably one of the best right-backs in the Premier League. Now, I might be pushing that, but in my opinion, when everyone's fit, Diogo Dalot is very underrated in the Premier League. But in the United fan base, He's perfect. He's everything you want in a right back. He's brilliant with both feet. He's versatile. He's got the leadership skills. He's aggressive. He's everything you want in a modern day fullback. He can run up and down all game long. And I've been completely sidetracked here. But we were talking about Erik Ten Hag and is he losing the fans? And what I meant to say was that it seems that way. And dropping the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford might get Erik Ten Hag a bit more time, you could say, from the United fan base, because a lot of fans are saying that Bruno Fernandes and Rashford need to be sold, need to be dropped, whatever excuse people want to come up with. And I'm kind of with them at this point. I want to see what it's like without our star players. Mason Mount's finally back, and he can play in Bruno Fernandes' role. We've got Alejandro Garnacho, who's played on the right wing practically all season. And obviously to complement Marcus Rashford, who's better on the left. Garnacho's adapted brilliantly. Last season, Garnacho was a greedy, upcoming, promising winger. This season, he's an established starting 11 player. This is his official breakout season. And he's done it pretty damn good, in my opinion. And going back to the likes of Mason Mount, in that 10 role, it doesn't have to be Mason Mount, but I would prefer it to be Mason Mount. It could also be someone like Scott McTominay sitting as a second striker, so he wouldn't be an established number 10, he'd be a second striker, kind of like how Everton do it with Doucouré and Calvert-Lewin. It's very interesting the way they do it, because Calvert-Lewin scores a lot of goals. We know we get the best out of Scott McTominay when he's crashing into the box like a wrecking ball, and he scores a lot of goals. I mean, he scored a brace in our last game against Chelsea. But as a progressive midfielder, when it comes to passing out wide or when it comes to taking touches and progressive carrying the ball, McTominay isn't good at that. You need to give McTominay the ball and let him score. And unfortunately, this is why I say he's a massive impact player. I don't want to sell Scott McTominay. I think he's a very good player and a very good squad player. But as a starting 11 player in a system that Erik Ten Hag wants to play in possession-based football, Scott McTominay is going to ruin it. So let's actually bring in someone like Mason Mount. We signed him for a reason. Christian Eriksen is equally as good, but he can't make it past the 50th minute. So let's give Mason Mount a try. He's back from injury. Let's see why Erik Ten Hag actually signed him. Play him in that central 10 role. Let Garnacho have Rashford's spot on the left. And maybe even bring back Antony or someone like Amad Diallo. Play them on the right wing and see what a difference it is. Now, I wouldn't even have an issue if Erik Ten Hag started Rashford and Bruno, but at least take them off because they never get substituted. That's the issue at the same time. You saw the likes of in the Liverpool game where we won 4-3 a couple of weeks ago. Yes, that was a box office game. But Rashford and Bruno, you know, apart from Bruno playing at centre-back and Rashford scoring the equaliser in extra time, there's really no massive highlights that I can say about them players. And I want to see a bit of a change in this Erik Ten Hag system. So maybe that's something else we can talk about. But as prediction goes, I'm going to go for another 2-1 victory. I think it's going to be the same as the most previous game. 2-1 to Manchester United. It's going to be a tough game, like I've said. But at the end of the day, you know, Chelsea, what else are they fighting for? Obviously, they're in the FA Cup against Man City. They're in a very much similar position as Manchester United, but Manchester United are going to be competing for that European spot, maybe Champions League or definitely Europa League. I don't know if Chelsea can push for Conference League football, but I think both teams are desperate to get the FA Cup. So I feel like Manchester United will want it more than Chelsea for Thursday's evening in the Premier League. But when it comes to the FA Cup, obviously, maybe we'll see each other in the final. I'm not too sure. But as far as it goes, I'm quite confident going into this game. But let me know in the comments down below if you made it this far into the video on your predictions for Man United versus Chelsea. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.